Coming up on this episode of Discover Health Podcast.
So many of them can cause cancer. It's really, really sad. And so, one of the things that you have to remember too is that of those contaminants that they're testing for, as long as it passes those, your water municipality can say it's safe to drink because that's all they're testing for, right?
Right.
So if it passes those tests, they can legally call it safe to drink. And you and I know that mm, that still means there could be so much more in there, though.
Welcome to the Discover Health Podcast, where we explore the power of gut health, nutrition, and lifestyle to help you feel your best every day. I'm Dr. Josh Sharp, your guide on this journey to better digestion, more energy, and overall well-being. Ready to start discovering? Let's hit the trail.
Welcome back to another episode of Discover Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Joshua Sharp, and joining me today is a new friend, Courtney Lawyer. Thanks for joining me today, Courtney.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Courtney serves as the president of Pure and Secure LLC, which is a family-owned company with over 55 years of experience in manufacturing high-quality water distillation systems and providing education on water quality. Courtney is passionate about educating people on the vital importance of consuming only fresh, distilled water, and she leads with the same values that her family's company stand for. Thanks again for joining me today. I'm really excited to learn more about you and learn more about water distillation and what's in our water.
Great. Yes, I'm happy to share.
So we've had a water distiller for several years now. And first of all, we love it. I can tell a huge difference in the way that my coffee tastes. I can tell a huge difference in just the taste and quality of the water. And it's made such a big difference. So I'm so thankful for that. But what triggered us to get into water distillation and learn more about that is learning about what was in our water. And so that's why I wanted to get more into that. But I wanted to talk with you and ask what first opened your eyes to water quality as a health issue. And was there something personal or something professional that kind of led you towards the My Pure Water, the pure water journey that you're on right now?
Well, that's kind of a unique thing for me to describe because I grew up in this business. My father purchased it from the founding family over 40 years ago. So I've personally been drinking pure distilled water since I was 5, and I love it. I am kind of known as a water snob amongst my friends, and I'm okay with that. It's because I know what can be in various water sources, and I choose to only use pure water. I take it everywhere I go. Yeah, so that's what got me interested, of course. I did go off to college. I lived in another state for 14 years and then came back to join the family business. And my father, who is in his 80s, finally decided to step back and retire. So I feel very honored to carry on his legacy. So my my family has always traveled. We've traveled all around the world educating folks on water quality. We've been involved in some very interesting commercial projects. We've sold to over 100 US embassies around the world. The Department of State knows that distillation is the best way to protect the staffers and their families from any accidental contamination of the water, weather-wise or anything intentional. So yes, distillers are very important for them, for their drinking source. And also we work with many other organizations. We work with Global Healing Center, Gerson Institute, Hippocrates down in Florida, you name it. So we're very proud of the work that we've done and the people that we work with and the lives that we've touched. I mean, obviously, we always have to be careful not to make medical claims, but the testimonials we get from people's improved health, oftentimes they can go off of medications and, they have improved digestion. And I've heard of improved eyesight and all sorts of things. So that to me is so gratifying. And that's why I love what we do.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think the list of places that you work with and companies that you have worked with providing water distillers is so impressive. And I know a little bit about the Gerson Institute, and I know a little bit about that. And so the fact that you have distillers serving them and their needs tells me a lot about what they think about the quality of the product that you provide. And so obviously they're finding it works great and they love using it. And so that speaks volumes to what you guys are doing.
Yes, they do recommend it for their patients in the protocol. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So let's go back onto a small scale for just a moment. Let's talk tap water if we could. Growing up, there was a little bit of a stigma for people that drank bottled water or drank filtered water, like, oh, tap water is not good enough for you. And it was almost like this mentality of, oh, you're one of those picky water people like and me now too, a water
Yeah.
snob. Oh, you're one of those picky water people. The tap water's fine. What are people missing? What are some things and contaminants in tap water that we maybe aren't aware of, and that we just assume that our government agencies are taking care of and cleaning it out for us? What are some things in the water? And I'll ask a follow up after we talk through that a little bit.
Okay. Sure. I think the most eye-opening fact about tap water is that um, there are tens of thousands of contaminants that could be in our water supply. I mean, when you think about the number of chemicals in the environment, that could far exceed that, really.
Yeah.
The EPA only requires testing of about 93 contaminants.
Okay. So they only require testing for 93, but you're saying there's tens of thousands in there.
That could be, I mean,
Could be in
there's
there,
that many out there that could end up in our water supply.
but they don't
And
know
of
because they're not
those,
testing for it.
correct, of those 93, it's about that tests that they do, there are safe and allowable levels of things like lead and arsenic and nitrates and all of that. And of course, it's an economic issue. They try their best to have health standards to protect people um, because, keep in mind, this is large volumes of water. I mean, the average home, a family of four would go through about 400 gallons of water a day. So I mean, we're talking flushing toilets, doing laundry, dishes, watering their lawn, everything. So, what we try and focus on is the water that is going to be consumed in your body. So, that is why we urge people to look at um, purifying the water in their own home that they are going to consume. Another thing that people need to be aware of is that there are other contaminants like pharmaceuticals. Think about how those can end up in the water supply. Of course, humans are consuming them, they're excreting them. A lot of times they're disposing them down a toilet. So, you've got things like birth control and antidepressants, antipsychotics, all of those things end up in the water supply. You mentioned bottled water before, and now, of course, we're hearing so much about microplastics. So
Yeah.
there are so many types of contaminants to be concerned about. I really think it's important for everyone to focus on okay, there's so much out of my control, but what can I do to um, protect me and my loved ones in my own home? And that is to get your own water purification system. And of course, here we believe the best that you can do for that is with a home water distiller. And we can get into that here shortly too.
Real quick, if you're a mom and you've been dealing with Lyme, chronic fatigue, or chronic illness, and you feel like you've tried everything, but nothing sticks, I want to personally invite you to join me and Ginger for a free live webinar called Why You're Still Stuck and How to Finally Heal. Every other Wednesday at noon Eastern, I'm walking you through the same terrain-based process that helped my wife Ginger go from homeschooling on the floor to traveling, exercising, and thriving again. If you're tired of chasing symptoms and you're ready for real answers, this training is for you. Just look for the registration link below this episode in the podcast description. Sign up, and I'll see you live on Wednesday. Yeah. So I love what you said. There's tens of thousands of chemicals potentially in your water, but they only know about just a teeny tiny little fraction of it because that's all they test for. And I can echo that sentiment. I was actually at a conference down in Florida, and I saw a guy. I think he had some shirt that said Missouri or something, and I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. And I noticed that, and I went up and talked to him, and he had asked some questions to one of the presenters about the water supply and about some of the chemicals. And what I learned was he was not, it was a conference for healthcare practitioners. He wasn't a practitioner. He actually worked for the state of Missouri, and he had something to do with, the water. And he was concerned. He's like, there's all kinds of stuff in the water, and we're not testing for it or doing anything about it.
Mm,
And people need to
yes.
know and people need to understand. So he was down learning as much as he could about certain chemicals, glyphosates, farm chemicals, pharmaceuticals that can end up
Right.
in the water. He was just trying to educate himself to take stuff back and hopefully get more awareness for what's in the water because, like you mentioned, they're not testing for it. And so, with these things in the water, the next question, the follow up question I was going to ask you is, what are some health concerns or what are some symptoms that people have noticed over the years or that you've heard from people that have been drinking this contaminated water? What are some symptoms that people might look for that could happen with some of these contaminants?
Mm, gosh. Um, there are so many, and the EPA on their own website, if you look up drinking water standards, and they will list all the contaminants that they test for. They're separated by category, and it gives the sources of where those contaminants can come from, and then it also gives effects, long-term health effects. If you go down that list, um, so many of them can cause cancer. It's really, really sad. And so, one of the things that you have to remember too is that of those contaminants that they're testing for, as long as it passes those, your water municipality can say it's safe to drink because that's all they're testing for, right?
Right.
So if it passes those tests, they can legally call it safe to drink. And you and I know that mm, that still means there could be so much more in there, though.
Yeah.
So something for your listeners to keep in mind there.
Yeah, absolutely. As I was preparing, some information to share with the people that I work for, I looked up our zip code and I saw certain things were 545% more than what is, the EPA allowance or what is considered safe. And other things were, 300%, 400%, 500% more. But these are things that are not tested for. And every one of those contaminants that was listed, it also listed the the potential harm or the potential conditions that could be associated with, and all of those were cancer. And so it's interesting to
Mm,
consider the possibility that
yeah.
what's in your water could potentially be driving so many of these health conditions, including cancers, and we're not aware of it, and nobody's really really focused on it except for people working to provide clean water. And so I'm
Right.
thankful for the work that you guys are doing and others that are doing to provide clean
Thank
water.
you.
So
Well,
how
and
should people? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, that just reminded me, cancer clusters, when they start to notice certain cancers of for many people showing up in a certain area, they do document those, they do research those. Um, but what good does that do? Really? I mean, I shouldn't say it that way. By then it's too late for those people.
Yep.
And that's so unfortunate. And I mean, it's like the lead issue in Flint, Michigan. I
Hmm.
mean, unfortunately, so many children were drinking that water contaminated with lead. Lead is a neurotoxin. It is very hard for your body to eliminate it.
Hmm.
And for those children, it causes learning disorders and really affects development. And it makes me so sad that
Yeah.
those things can happen. And it was just, oh, whoops, we changed the water source. Those pipes didn't have lead corrosion inhibitors. Sorry. I mean, here's bottled water to get you through. Well, by then it's too late. So, um, I would really encourage people to, you know, this might be something that you've thought about doing for a while, or yes, I should do something. Um, do it the sooner rather than later to get that peace of mind. I really don't worry too much about what could be going on in my local water because I don't have to. I have a distiller, you have a distiller. The peace of mind that brings, obviously, we can't protect ourselves everywhere we go. Restaurants use their water to make food, and, there we go. But, take control the best that you can and distill your water at home would be my big encouragement.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And it's just one more thing, and a saying that I have, and I repeat it probably way too often for my listeners, but health does not happen by accident anymore. There's toxins everywhere you look, the air
Everywhere.
you're breathing, the water you're drinking, everything you're
Yeah.
putting on your skin. There's just toxins everywhere, and so health isn't an accident. You have to be intentional, and
Right.
one of the in my opinion, one of the biggest bang for your buck, or biggest impact for your effort, is focusing on your water, because
Mhm.
what you're drinking could be impacting you in so many different ways that you don't recognize or realize or attribute to the water, because you can't see it. It looks clear, it looks okay, and you're used to the taste by now, and so it's one of those
Yeah.
things that is
But water is
overlooked.
involved in every function of your body. It really, truly is that important. Not only the amount that you drink, staying hydrated, but also the quality. Yep.
Absolutely. So, how would you recommend people go about figuring out what's in their water, or what they need to be concerned about for their area? Because a lot of different areas, a lot of different municipalities might have different concerns. What's a way that people could figure that out or learn more about what could be in their water?
Well, your local municipality is required to provide a water test report annually. So that's certainly something that you could ask for if you don't recall receiving it. Often they're available online. Um, there are websites where you can enter your zip code. Um, I think you mentioned one of them, EWG, and that should tell you. But I more importantly, I guess I would take a broader perspective and just realize there are going to be contaminants in your water that you don't want to be putting in your body. If I could explain to your listeners, in case they don't know what distillation is and how how it is that different from a
Hmm.
filter. And I'll start by saying, if you're filtering your water, good job. That is definitely a great start. Um, and things like reverse osmosis, which is a series of filters and water is pumped up under pressure, that's even better. But there is another step that you can take. that will purify your water even to a higher purity, and it will be more consistent. So um, we 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 follow the hydrologic cycle. So Earth has its own way of purifying water. In fact, we have the same water here today that was here when the dinosaurs roamed, and that's pretty crazy to think about. But the way that the Earth naturally purifies water is through the hydrologic cycle. So water is heated by the sun, and it heats up the lakes, rivers, oceans, and that creates evaporation. And when that evaporation is comprised of H2O molecules. So those molecules, when they are evaporating, they are leaving behind the contamination. And that's why ocean water is the most contaminated water on Earth. It can be, I mean, they say it's around 35,000 parts per million of contaminants. So those H2O molecules are evaporating up into the sky. And when they condense, they start to condense, they form clouds. And when they get too heavy, that's when they release, and the precipitation comes down as rain. And if we didn't have any air pollution, your rainwater would be perfectly pure. If I could say perfectly, it's
Right.
it's the beauty of nature. And so that's what we replicate inside a distiller. We're bringing the raw water in, and we've talked a lot about tap water, but it could be well water too. So you're boiling, you're bringing that water to a boil, and as it starts to steam, it's letting go of the contamination. So things like lead has a boiling point of thousands of degrees. So obviously that's not going to carry with the steam, right? Its boiling point is far too high. So it and other heavy metals, radioactive contaminants that we've tested, nitrates, what else? I mean, so many things. I can give your listeners a link to our lab results on our website, which are all done by third-party labs, of course. But anyway, those will be left behind in the boiling tank, and what you have is the pure steam rising up. Now, gaseous contaminants, we do have things that could be volatile, VOCs. Those can rise with the steam. And we have designed dual patented vents, volatile vents for that steam to escape. And then also we incorporate our distillers with a carbon filter. So that will do a final polish of any residual VOCs that could carry with the steam. But that will drip down in a separate container, either a glass jar or a stainless steel tank, which is how most of our distillers are designed. And that's what gives you such high purity water. Also, because this is a scientific process, it's thermal phase change, it's very consistent. You will get the same high purity water in 20 years that you got on day one, as long as you maintain your distiller. And it's really not too hard to do that, is it?
No, it isn't. It isn't so bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
simple maintenance. So
Yeah, I think that's one of the
this
things that stands apart from other filters is once they've filtered stuff, they're getting a little less effective, a little less effective, a little less effective, and then eventually you have to replace it. And
mhm,
there's so many contaminants that can slip through those filters, even with reverse osmosis, which is great.
absolutely.
Reverse osmosis is really, really good with all those membranes, but there's still things that can slip through. And so that's one of the cool things about doing distillation is you're removing the water from the contaminants as opposed to trying to, push the water through and leave the contaminants stuck in the membrane. It's
Well said.
yeah.
Yes, very well said. The other category of contaminants I didn't mention yet are biological. And of course, with the prolonged boiling process, anything would be killed and then it's left behind in the boiling tank. So you're not consuming any of those dead matter.
Yeah, don't drink the
So,
water from the boiling tank.
yeah, right. In fact, which model do you have, by the way? Is it a mini or you
Yeah,
have
the
an automatic?
countertop, mini.
Okay. So the countertop unit that we're talking about, it leaves a little water. We intentionally leave water behind in that boiling tank to make the maintenance a lot easier. So you just tip that out and give it a rinse before you start a new cycle. But if you were to leave it in there and keep distilling and just let it concentrate, you would see how much junk you're removing from your water, and it is so eye-opening. So that might be a little test if you wanted to do that or show patience in your local area. It's it'll be pretty pretty crazy. We've seen all kinds of scale. Here in Nebraska, we get kind of a rusty orange scale, but we have a service center, so we have distillers in from all over the country. And I mean, it can be like black tar. We've seen it bright green and crystallized. Of course, you see white powdery, which is an indication of calcium. And so it's pretty amazing to actually visually see what your body is not having to process and deal with, and you think, gosh, maybe that was just over a month. Could you imagine drinking that water and having to deal with that, process that for 20 years? And then it kind of makes you realize, well, no wonder people are getting these chronic illnesses. If this is what they're putting their body through all the time, can you
Mhm.
imagine?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I like to describe it like a bucket, and your body can only process so much. And the more that bucket fills up, eventually it's going to spill over. And that's when you're going to get your conditions, your
Yeah.
labels, things that have a diagnosis. That's when you're going to get your significant health issues. But that bucket, the more full it is, and some things they're totally out of our control, what's in our air and some of the things that are around us are out of our control, but the water is just one more thing. And so if you can reduce your toxic burden and
Mhm.
take that load out of your bucket, you're just reducing the amount of gunk in your toxic bucket and hopefully helping your body, process the other stuff because it's got less work to do
More
from the
efficiently.
water.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Good
absolutely.
point.
So I know that there are some people that have concerns about, drinking distilled water and that they're going to lose minerals or it's not good for you to drink distilled water. How would you address those myths and those concerns?
Yeah, for some reason, I think distilled water got a bad rap. There are some myths floating around back there that around there that it's not healthy to drink or not good to drink long term. Um, but the process of distillation, basically, I mean, distilled water equals H2O. That's really what it is. So how can pure H2O be bad for your body? Now, we certainly try to encourage people to think of purity being the priority, especially with so many contaminants nowadays that could be in the water. But if you are not getting a varied enough diet and you are concerned about minerals, there are lots of different options out there for mineral drops, mineral supplements. And that would be something that you'd want to talk to your doctor about before just taking. But at least you'd be starting with pure water and not adding to your toxic load, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said. Obviously, you've been drinking distilled water since you were 5 years old. And now that
Oh,
you're 25 years old, you're fine. I mean,
oh,
everything is
sure.
fine. So
That's
you're
very kind of you.
you're a walking testimony. So it's
Uh,
uh
Actually, the founder of Hippocrates, Dr. Brian Clement, him and his wife Anna Marie run that. And he's I've got an amazing video testimonial from him. He said buying a pure water distiller was the best investment he ever made. He was so impressed and appreciative of having a distiller for raising his children. And now that his children are adults, of course, they all have distillers. He was able to pass down his 40-year-old MIDI, actually. He sent it in here for refurbishment, passed that down to one of his children, and got himself a new one finally after 40 years. But when he did some extensive testing at the doctor, and they said his arteries looked like that of a much younger person. If you are drinking water with hard minerals in it for a long period of time, that's when those hard minerals can build up in your body and cause things like kidney stones, gallstones, arthritis. And of course, he did not have that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a really good testimony, and I like the way that you pointed out, the minerals in your water that so many people are so afraid that we're going to miss out on actually can cause problems of their own, and so I think that's an
Mm.
excellent thing to point out. We've talked about the benefits of drinking distilled water, but what are some other benefits of distilled water that people might see in their household, or what are some other uses that people might have for distilled water?
Ah, very good. Of course, you want to, so drinking the water, you also want to make your coffee and tea with it. And I think you mentioned your coffee tastes so much better. Also, it's very important for any young families. So anybody who's about to be pregnant, if you're nursing or you're feeding formula, mixing formula for your babies, start with pure water. Oh my gosh, it's so important. Nitrates is a big concern here in the Midwest, and that can, reduce oxygen levels in your blood. That's where blue baby syndrome comes from. So important to make sure you're drinking pure water if for young families especially. Um, Seed germination. So if anyone is into sprouting, I do my own sprouts. And it actually you can test it if you plant some seeds and water it with tap water or well water versus planting seeds and watering with distilled water. Not only will you get more germination, you will get faster germination from using pure distilled water. So that's a good use. Of course, we want to take care of our pets and make sure they live as long as possible. So, them not having water with hard minerals in it, which can give them arthritis and things like that, distilled water is important. And we've had many folks say that if they put out tap water versus distilled water for their pets, that the pets, you know, they have such a good sense of smell. They know to go to the pure water.
Yeah,
Um,
I can
Cooking.
confirm that. My
Oh, you
dog
can. Oh,
Yeah, my
oh,
dog
neat.
has started drinking his body weight in distilled water. I feel like he just
Wow.
stands there and drinks forever and ever and ever, and when he was drinking tap water, I mean, you hardly ever saw him go over, and I'm sure he drank water, but it didn't was not near as
Right.
often, but we can tell the difference.
Yes. It's so pure, it just makes you wanna drink more, I mean, that's how I feel, and I've had a lot of people explain that to me too. Cooking is very important, so if you're cooking, say you're cooking potatoes, you're boiling the pot of water and, it comes to a boil. If it's tap water, and you're boiling it and you're seeing that steam, what's escaping there? That's your pure H2O. And actually, what you're being left with in that pot is more concentrated contaminants that are going to get into your food. So, cooking with pure distilled water is very essential too.
Yeah, that
Yep.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I know other people would use distilled water for CPAP machines and things like that. I'm sure there's
Oh,
other
yeah.
lots of other uses for it. Let's
Absolutely.
talk about briefly, and you kinda touched on it a little bit. But when you travel, what do you do? How do you get the most pure water when you travel? Or if you do
Yeah.
go to a restaurant, What do you do to try to protect yourself, or do you just not think about it?
I absolutely think about it. So like I said, around town here, I have my water bottle with me everywhere I go. Make sure it's stainless steel on the inside. You don't want aluminum or anything like that. But when I'm on the road, that can be a little bit more difficult. If it's a place I'm going to be a long time, or we're driving, then I can take a countertop unit like the mini. But oftentimes I'm across the country or on the other side of the world. I really try and find smart water. That is also distilled, and they use a much better quality plastic for their bottled water. So I've found that to be the best alternative if you're traveling.
That's good to know, just because,
Yeah.
people work so hard to take care of themselves at home and the water at home, but, so many people have to travel frequently or they spend, periods of time away from home. It's nice to know there are some ways where they could try to protect themselves and do a little bit better job, even when they're on the road. So thanks for that
Yeah.
advice.
No problem.
Um, looking ahead, into the future of My Pure Water, into the future of your company, what do you see coming? What innovations are you expecting to happen in the future? Are there any exciting things that you guys are working on that you could share?
Ah, wasn't expecting to be asked that, but it's very timely because I we're starting a new year here with a new person in charge, and that's a big deal. My father was, he ran the company for 40 years, and that was no easy task. As a manufacturer, there's a lot of complications. You're very dependent on your supply chain, and the slightest thing can affect, you know, a machine. You have to have 100% of your parts to make a distiller. So,
Right.
that does provide its own challenges. But what I would like to do, we do have some ideas for distiller innovations for the future. But for this year specifically, I don't know if you noticed, we have a new logo, new tagline, Cloud to Table. We think it's very friendly and easy to understand. We are developing a whole new website, and I want to incorporate things that people can use to thrive in their lifestyle, and ways to use pure water more. So we are looking at, I will share this, we are looking at concentrated eco-friendly cleaning products. So that's a good way to further use your pure water. You get those, you're helping the environment, you're helping keep a cleaner, safer, non-toxic home, and it's a good way to use your pure water. We are also looking at some various add-ins to the water for supplementation. So whether it be the trace minerals or electrolytes, things like that. So we would like to incorporate more of a whole body approach for health. Um, and then as we go along, we will be doing other things with distillers. So yes, we're very inspired and excited. We have a great team here. The culture's great, and we're really, excited to help people be healthy and help them learn. Our sales guys are not really, when they're hired on. I shouldn't say sales guys. Our sales people, when they are hired on, we don't call it a sales process. They learn an education process. And
Mhm.
that is very important to me. We're here to help educate. We truly believe once people have this education, they will make the right choice for their family. And maybe at the time it's not a distiller. Maybe all they can afford is a filter or a reverse osmosis system. And like I said, that is so much better than nothing. So I would encourage people to do that over nothing. But we do hope that one day, if they agree that makes the most sense, that they would go with a distiller for their
Yeah.
family. So yeah.
I can confirm what you talked about. When I was first learning about some of the contaminants in our water, at our old home and what was in there, and looking into just myself trying to get educated on ways to, filter that out, looking at different filters, looking at whole home filtration, all the stuff. And I
Yeah,
came across your company and I met somebody, and I wish I could remember who it was to give them a compliment, but it wasn't about pushy sales or anything of that sort. It was just education. Here's how it works. And it was a no-brainer. It was such an easy decision for us. And at that exact moment, we weren't quite ready, financially to buy a distiller. We just had a lot going on, a lot of other expenses, but we knew,
sure.
okay, this is where we want to go. And so we saved up and we bought it, and we have not regretted it since then, years later. And
That's
so I
great.
was so thankful for just the education that whoever it was that was at this conference provided. And I was just so thankful that they made this just such an easy decision for us, and thankful for what you guys are doing. Thanks so much for joining me today and agreeing to be on this podcast and sharing so much of your knowledge
Absolutely.
and wisdom with our listeners. If people want to
Yeah.
learn more about you guys and learn more about your water distillers, how could they find you?
So our website, our main website is mypurewater.com. And I know you have a discount code with us. It's DH5. So once your listeners feel ready to take that next step and they enter the code in the at the shopping cart, they will get a 5% discount off their distiller. So
Well, thank you for doing that. I think that is so great. I'll definitely put your links
absolutely.
below this episode, below the podcast. The audio version, it'll be in the description below the podcast. In the video version, it'll be in the YouTube description, and I'll have the discount code link. It's pretty easy to remember, DH5, but I'll have the discount code link there too. And thank you so much for doing that for our listeners.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Discover Health podcast. Remember, your health is a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next week.